Welcome back, everybody, to the Educated Fed. As you may already know, this is episode 2. My name is Alex Wellings. This is Kane Crawford. We're with FAAG, and we're here to educate you, right, on anything that's going on in the federal space. We're here to help kind of shed some light on current events and what that might mean for you. If you're close to retirement, if you're just concerned about your benefits, doesn't matter what. But we always want to come together and just have a casual conversation about what's going on. And we were saying in the last episode, you know, we do so many presentations, we do so many classes across the country together and virtually that it's one of those things where we're always talking about the exact same things, but we never really get to relate those things to current events, and that's why we wanted to start doing this.
Yeah, we try to bring in at least recent stories in each one of those classes, but
and try and give our best opinions on what's going on.
Yeah.
That's the most important part. It's opinion-based show.
In my humble opinion, right?
Yeah, right.
That's today.
So
yeah, last time we talked about the return to work.
Yeah, right? Which was, definitely a well-received show. Thanks so many of you for watching and commenting and sharing your thoughts on things. It was really, really great to see the response immediately from that. And again, if you're watching out there and you want to chat, there's always an opportunity for you to get a consultation. We're always open to having a talk about whatever it is you're concerned about. Short or long, we're here for you.
Yep. And just
we were talking with that.
Keeping it true to the educated Fed. We always believe you're going to make better decisions if you're educated on the topic. We talked a little bit about that return to work. Got lots of questions, lots of follow-up conversations about, hey, that's me. I'm the guy that could have retired in 2020, but I stuck around. I've already had a few people say, I'm leaving. If they say I've got to go back,
really?
I'm already done. I've got the paperwork in my hand. Right. So that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. That's exactly what we want.
We want to see people retired. If you're eligible, go off into the sunset, right? It won't be that sunset moment until you get there. Yeah, that's the key. I think we figured that out.
You have to paint it for yourself, really.
Yeah.
You got to paint that moment.
And you've got to get into the retirement mode before you really see that. I think you called it the sunset. You want to have it, you'll know what it looks like after you get there. And then you'll go, oh.
It's the unfortunate circumstance.
Exactly.
It's going to slap you in the face after you've pulled the trigger, not before.
Right. But I think what one thing
you mentioned a couple acronyms that came up a bunch, and that's why you wanted to do this episode. You were like, we got to talk on this because everybody's mentioning it.
People started asking, hey, well, what if I actually have to go, and it's not just the choice that I want to make, right? So then we got to start talking about like a RIF, right? All the government acronyms we always joke about in the classes. There's a million of them, and I'm always surprised when people don't like, what's that one, right? Even you and I catch you like, hey, what's that one, Alex? You say, what's that one? But so a RIF, right? If we go back to DOGE, right?
Yeah,
the Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah.
If they, I think what I'm hearing is, what if they actually get their way and they start having the ability to kind of lead the direction of, hey, we need to get rid of this, that, and the other.
So reduction in force.
Reduction in force is the RIF, R-I-F, right?
All right.
Some of you know it because you've been 30, 40 years in the government. You've seen it over the years, right?
Yeah.
Like you said last time, we don't know if that's going to take a 6-month time period, a year, 4 years. Some of this stuff could take the entire agency's time frame. But you got to know, if you're faced with a RIF, what's it going to look like, right?
Do you think that they're going to come in and just slice up actual jobs first, or are they going to go in with because what I've seen on the news and such is a lot of we're going to get rid of this grant that we have, this $1 million grant that we give here and the $1 million grant over here that we just don't care about whatever research comes from it.
Right.
All those little things.
I'm seeing that first, right? The people concerned, right, from the media and from whatever else, right? I'm going to lose my job. I don't think is going to be as first level as what you're talking about. They're going to start cutting the fat of the budgets, right? They're going to start repositioning the budget more so than repositioning people.
Yeah,
I think that's the first.
It's gonna look bad if you're just coming in and you're like slash and burn. Yeah, jobs.
When look at the last 4 presidencies, right? Or every presidency, we want to create jobs. They're not trying to cut jobs, whether it be government jobs or not, but they're just wanting to be more efficient. So I think DOGE has got their purpose. Good for them. If they can cut some fat, I'm a taxpayer. You're a taxpayer. Good for all of us.
All of you watching are taxpayers,
right? I mean, good for us if they can cut some fat. But when it comes to the ability of just saying, hey, we're gonna get rid of some folks, I don't know if that's an immediate concern for anybody, really.
Yeah. I don't think so You know, I'm beginning a lot of those questions too of people very concerned about reduction in force, and we have seen it happen. In fact, there was a reduction in force. I don't know if you remember in Trump's first administration, he cut a ton of funding to the EPA.
Yeah, yeah.
And we got a ton of appointments. At least I did. I don't know if you did, from Environmental Protection Agency employees.
Yeah, yeah. Our office in
that
Colorado,
were forced
we were
into
inundated.
early retirement.
Yeah, yeah. On that, and so that then brings up another thing, right? A RIF isn't typically going to be just a RIF. There's going to
What does
be
that mean?
a VERA. Right?
Vera. That's the other one that you kept mentioning.
VERA,
Yeah.
right? The Voluntary Early Retirement Authority. That gives what happened to
They gave him the authority to go to give an early
offer
retirement.
the early out. Right.
And so it wasn't a penalized.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it was. Is that those EPA advisor or EPA agents were able to leave.
Yeah. Well, then the rules. I mean, I think I got it pulled up. There's a handful of There's a handful of minimums, right?
Yeah.
You got to be 50 years old. You have to have X amount of time on the job. But if you meet that criteria, this is voluntary early out, basically.
And they dropped it like age 50. If you were like
Yeah,
50 and older,
50 and
you
over.
got full, as if you had worked to 60 and 20.
Yeah.
And
not only that, they bring up the VSIP, VSIP, the voluntary. It's an income. It's an incentive, voluntary separation incentive payment. Right. So now they're going to pay. Remember, I think even some of the EPA
that's
folks,
the VSIP.
The DOD folks, this was in, I want to say it was even 18 or I can't remember the last time there was a big one. DOD had a big Vera VSIP offer. They were paying 25 to 40
package.
grand. Yeah.
That's what this is.
So that's why I've had a handful of folks, even from our last episode, say, hey, well, I think I might be in that group. If they decide to start cutting some workforce,
gosh,
I'm in the workload that probably gets a VSIP of some sort of they're going to pay me to leave.
Makes sense. They're not going to come in, and this is an unfortunate effect of just layoffs in general. Companies don't come in and slash the young talent. It's the older dogs. And in some ways, if you're closer to that retirement, it makes it easier for them to put a good severance package together.
Yeah.
Firing young employees. I mean, I guess entry-level employees is one thing that people get rid of a lot.
And that goes back to the real RIF is going to go on a guideline and last in, first out, right? It's typically just a straight RIF. If they get the approval to start cutting workforce,
they'll go with the people that have just got hired.
And most of I mean, if you're the last one in the job, you're probably going to be the first one out of the job if they really can cut your group or whatever.
But then wouldn't logic reason to and then see if we can get some of the older people to retire
so
soon?
It's usually kind of on a joint level. From what I've seen in the past, and talking to my dad, the old DOD, gray hair that we always kind of talk about. And so there's a couple levels, right? First in, or last in, first out. And if you're a veteran, veterans probably don't get kicked, right?
Well, yeah.
Your veteran status is going to keep your job for you, so that's cool. Thank you for your service. And if you're a vet, maybe you have a little less to worry about. But yeah, so they'll take out those first ones that maybe they shouldn't have hired them, knowing things were happening. But then I'm with you. And my dad even said it, this morning on a call. He said, how many certain level, middle managers end up having peers for days? Like there's 10 or 12 people in the same job description that they know they don't all need to be there.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that'll probably get a nice severance.
And they're in their 50s.
Yeah.
The severance makes financial sense for the government. Let's get these positions off the books, but let's not burn people along the way.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen more than anything is they seem to take good care of those people on the exit. It's not like hey, you're fired, like The Apprentice show, right? Like you're fired.
And Trump's back in his old job.
I know, right?
Like, you're fired.
It's not a lot of that. It's more like, hey, unfortunately, there have been some adjustments to the budget that have caused X, and we're going to phase out this position, and in return, you're going to get this kind of a severance type package.
And for those people, I think those people, even the RIF people, we want you to understand, one, your benefits, because, again, we're the educated Fed, and you got to understand what you have. But the ones that are going to have that package are probably in a position to where if everything's put, I kind of use the puzzle analogy. All the puzzle pieces are on the table. We can help you put the puzzle together, and then if you find that you're the one getting that offer, do I take it or do I not is the only answer. The only thing you got to worry about.
Do you find like so? I'm thinking back to those days with those Environmental Protection Agency folks. I vaguely remember this is 5 years, no, longer than that, probably 7 years ago when this was happening. Because you got to
It
think
was back
it was 4 years
17
of
or 18,
Biden
wasn't it?
administration, and then I think it was like halfway through the Trump term when they started
So I
cutting
think it was
funding.
17 or 18.
Yeah. So, gosh, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Isn't it hard to
So
believe we've been
long
doing this
ago.
for that long?
So long ago.
Yeah. So, sitting there talking with those folks, a lot of them, the planning on that process was a lot of like, hey, do you still want to work? So if you get phased out and you're 50, there was no like penalties for turning on your pension,
Right.
right? You
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it, and you could go back to work. Turning on Social Security was the other thing. Couldn't turn Social Security on.
You
So
lose your SRS.
right,
You don't get your special retirement supplement.
but this income payment though is making up a lot of it. I
For
remember
all those
that.
little gaps,
Right.
yeah.
So there's a lot of the gaps. So it's like, oh, you can kind of have a watered down version of your retirement until you're 60, whatever it
Yeah,
is, whenever you could turn on whatever. And then, you'd get into a more traditional retirement plan after 62 or whenever Social Security chose to get turned on. But what I remember having a lot of people is like, they just still wanted to work. It's like, I'm not ready to retire. My kids are still in
Yeah, I got high
college, or
school kids
you
at
got high
50
school
years
kids
old,
at
right?
50, right? So a lot of those people still wanted to work, and they found it an opportunity to like, let's make sure I effectively claimed my benefits, got everything I could possibly get out of my benefits, kept the health insurance if I could. A lot of those people couldn't. We'll see how that goes with this.
Yeah.
Again, it's going to dictate on the package of what they can and can't do. But and we'd have them get another job, but then had maximized benefits, and they actually ended up earning way more income for 10 years than they ever would have
Right.
if they had stayed working in the government. There was never a reduction in force. Isn't that crazy? I
Yeah.
remember that. At least I have 2 clients that I know went out. They were VA doctors, a couple of them. They got phased out or some sort of situation, and they were able to elect early, and they went out and made a ton of money. And the EPA agents, yeah, they went out, and so they were able to go
Well,
out and collect their benefits and still make them income on
yeah,
top of
and those
that.
docs were making big dollars
Yeah.
outside of the VA.
Now, that wasn't in the reduction in force stuff we were talking about, but with the EPA stuff, they went out and found other careers doing similar type positions, just not for the government, earned a W-2 income at that job, had another 401k that they could contribute to, still had their TSP, got a pension, got the stipend for
The whole thing.
I mean, it was like,
And I think some of those folks even actually contracted back to the government, right? Because remember, they were like trying to
really?
put that into whatever their labor force deal was then. Get rid of your government job, go get a job doing the same kind of work,
Yeah.
and find yourself in a contract working back for the government,
Do
but at a
you-
much bigger salary.
Do you think, I don't have any of these in my clientele, but I would be wondering if you might. Have any of those people that were part of the reduction in force come back to work for the EPA after the Biden administration came in and potentially even hired more into the EPA again? Because the budget probably came back.
I don't have any, but yeah, I wouldn't doubt.
I wonder.
I wouldn't
I would
doubt.
not doubt that at all, because there's a lot of times I'll see leaving earnings statements or standard Form 50s where they're like, yeah, they left service, got
Came
their
back.
pension, and now have another job with the government. And you're
Right.
like, oh my gosh, what is this?
It's
You
like,
know?
I wasn't ready to leave. I wanted to go back, and the opportunity was there.
And then they came back. Yeah.
Well, that I think if nothing else, let's just kind of put that into perspective, right? New administration, no matter who's in there, means changes to the benefits or changes the workforce, and it doesn't always mean it's bad, right? Like there's an opportunity.
Actually, it could be a huge opportunity.
What's the old saying? When one door closes, maybe 2 more open.
Right.
Like I think anybody watching the show should feel free to ask us these questions, right? We're talking to folks across the country who've either been in the middle of it, experienced it, or going through it, and we're always talking live situations. So to know that the possibilities of the next step are there, don't be fearful. If nothing else, I can say just don't be afraid for what's happening. Try to keep your mind open, your eyes open, and take everything with a grain of salt, really, right?
Yeah. I think, again, like we said last episode, never jump to that conclusion where it's like everything's going to happen really quick. It's not going to happen quick. It may, in fact, happen. Does seem like a lot of the cornerstone of what this new administration ran on was this is what we're going to get down to. And a lot of Americans voted for this. So it might happen, but how it looks and how what history can tell us is, at least recent history, is the government and the United States people are not about burning people's lives, and they understand that there are real humans that work in these positions for the government, and it's about making sure we take care of them as best as possible, but also think about our future long term as a country and what do we really want. And so, I think it's going to take some time for them to hammer out exactly how to best do that. But in the meantime, you got to think about yourself, and you got to get your ducks in a row. And just, it's always good. I don't care where you are in your career, but especially if you're in your 50s older, you owe it to yourself to get at least an annual checkup, like you would for your
health,
being a doctor for your health,
exactly.
Right? Get a checkup. Talk with somebody about your benefits so you always know what your maximization strategy is going to be, and somebody that stays informed. Stays informed on exactly what's going on in the government. And, this is one of the big pressing issues, and nobody knows which department's going to be on the chopping block, but it's going to be a good chunk of them.
I think another thing to consider is they're, to kind of follow up with what you said, they're not trying to, burn everybody down. One of the parts of a RIF is repositioning. It's not just, hey, you're gone. It's, are there other positions
that you could be doing
with your job description, right?
Yeah,
so a
that's
lot
true.
of folks could just switch agencies. I've talked to people over the years that have been with 3 different agencies. One of those was because they were doing a downsize, and I either had to move to Illinois or I had to take this other job with the other agency.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that. That's for sure.
And I honestly think that's probably a big possibility for a huge number of folks that maybe feel like, I've got one of those jobs that's probably going to go away eventually. Your job description fits you into a whole bunch of other agencies.
Yeah.
And that's an option.
And I've found, obviously the government loves to hire within, loves to just take the ease of like just bringing you from one agency to another.
Yeah.
They already know you, your background, your work ethic, things like that. And if they can reposition you, they will. As long as you also show interest in it too. You can't just they're not going to just handpick you. Like, you're swapping from this one to this one.
Right. No, it's going to take some effort on everyone's part. The day it comes down to where, hey, we found some areas we need to trim, and it's going to be X amount of jobs, right? The day they figure that out and you find yourself in that thing, that's when you start, let's start looking now. If you think you're in that position, start looking now. See what's out there. Find out where the next craze is, right? Where's the government talk about adding workforce?
Yeah.
And if you fit in there, hey, be ahead of the game, worst case. And then if you don't ever get the call,
is it your opinion? It certainly is mine, but is it your opinion that most of the time these situations create a good opportunity?
I think so.
Not always just a negative one.
I'm an eternal optimist, though, Alex.
I agree. But I think there's always a good opportunity in any crisis.
Oh, yeah.
This is an opportunity, or has been an opportunity, at least for our clients, to either better position themselves financially or get them to a place of even higher happiness factor, right? Whether that be retirement or that be, a new position and making even more money.
Right. And any Tony Robbins kind of deal, they're going to tell you, the wind's going to blow on all of us. You set your sails is going to make all the difference. But yeah, I think the opportunities that exist are there if you just don't fight the change.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know.
Look, if you have questions, let us know. We're here to help. And I think this is a good conversation for sure. So hope it answered any questions. And if you are one of those people concerned, or you want to check up and you don't have somebody to have a checkup, make sure you get one. Get on the calendar. There's always a link to do so. Take care. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.